First, let's identify slope and y-intercept from an equation. Given the equation y equals mx plus b, m represents the slope and b is the y-intercept. In this equation, y equals 7/5 x minus 3. The slope is 7/5, and the y-intercept is -3. To write that y-intercept as a coordinate, I write it as 0, -3. Notice that the slope is the number that is being multiplied by the x. Also note that if this equation were y equals -7/5 x minus 3, the slope would be -7/5. Now we're going to identify the slope and y-intercept from the graph. Let's actually start with the y-intercept. You find your y-axis and then look for where the graph goes through the y-axis. That is your y-intercept. In this case, the graph goes through the y-axis at 0, 3. Now to find the slope, I'm going to start at my y-intercept because it is also a perfect lattice point. The graph is going through an exact point here. And I'm going to follow along on my graph until I get to the next time the graph goes through an exact point. I see that's here at 5, 2, so I'm going to mark that. Recall that slope is the change in y over the change in x. So I'm actually going to add my fraction bar to my slope first. And now I'm going to look at my change in y. I see that to get from this point to this point, I have to go down 1. So to my slope, I'm going to add -1 in the numerator. Then, from this point to this point, I have to go to the right 5. So I'm going to write 5 in my denominator. This means the slope of this line is -1/5. I recommend that you always attach the negative or not to the y. So if your y is going up, it's positive, and if you're going down, it's negative, and that your change in x is always positive and always moving to the right. The final skill you need for this standard is to find the slope between 2 points. You can do this algebraically or graphically. We're going to focus on graphically. So given the point -2, 7, and the point -5, 3, find the slope. First, let's plot these 2 points carefully. My first point is -2, 7. So on my x-axis, I find -2, and then I go up to +7. My second point is -5, 3. So I go to -5 on the x-axis, and then up 3, and there's my second point. Now I find the change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to add my fraction bar to the slope first, and then I look here, the change in y goes up by 4. So I put that in the numerator, and notice that it's going up, so it's a +4. Then I look at my change in x, and I can see that I go to the right 3. So in the denominator of my slope, I write 3. Again, I like to think of my change in x as always moving to the right, so it's always positive. And then my numerator, my change in y, is positive or negative depending on whether I have to go up or down.